Hello, it's Charles Scoville, your Golden Harvest agronomist with your Focus Friday here on October the 6th. So this week, I want to talk about a couple of things. A little bit on our update on heat units after a great, nice, warm week. Also, seeing our first soybean plot harvest and talk a little about what we learned there. And in addition, we're starting to see some stalk rots. Want to talk about what to look for there. And finally, interesting question. Got a call on why are my soybeans turning purple? And so I want to talk about what we're finding there. So let's jump right into it this week. And first of all, talk about the heat unit accumulation. So, we know it was warm, but how warm really was it? Let's put some numbers to this. A week ago in the mid-Michigan area, we were 219 heat units behind the 5-year average. As of today, we're only 130 heat units behind the 5-year average. So an amazing improvement in corn crop development out there. And the soybeans certainly changed a lot, and it was great to see some soybean combines out there rolling in the harvest. So that was good. On for the other portion of that, looking forward to next week. I did the math. We're only going to average 2 heat units per day for the next week. That's going to bring things to somewhat of a screeching halt with cooler and wetter than normal weather here. But welcome to fall in Michigan. My bigger concern is right now they are talking about getting into some cold mid 30 degree temperatures next week. So we're going to see probably a little bit of frosted corn in some areas. Now remember, it does take 28 degrees for 3 hours to actually kill corn. So we're going to frost some leaves. I don't know that we're going to kill the stalks and kill the plant completely, but you get enough days in a row of those, and sometimes there becomes some accumulation of just greater stress on keeping those corn plants alive. So we'll keep an eye on it and certainly hope for the best as we move forward. Talking about soybean plot harvest, first plot in West Michigan, not the highest yielding plot in the world, but a pile of white mold in it. And so we learned a few things. One is, depending on when the white mold set in, we found the fuller season varieties actually took it on the chin for yield, and the more so than the earlier season varieties that actually ended up winning the plot. And so anytime we can delay the onset of white mold is certainly helpful in that yield potential out there. And that thing, we saw white mold in it early in the season this year. Keeping in mind, though, if we did see a lot of white mold in a field, let's not put that back to soybeans next year. And, of course, when we go back to soybeans, let's manage that for the increased risk because we've got a lot more sclerotia out there in the soil. So thinking about variety selection and which varieties have the greatest tolerance for white mold. Things like our 2292s or 1922s certainly fill that void in a good way. Lowering planting populations, widening rows, and certainly considering specific fungicides for white mold at that R1 timing. We can continue to work on managing this. There are no silver bullets out there, but we do have a lot of good tools in the toolbox as we think about white mold. Also, starting to push stalks out there and finding a little bit of stalk rot. So, we are in October. We have had a lot of stress this year. It is time to start checking our fields, push 10 stalks in a row. If we start seeing those stalks push and not come back, that is the indication of stalk rot, and we can figure as a percentage out of 10 out there of how bad that stalk rot is. But don't leave it at that. Look to see why. So when you push a stalk over and it breaks, go down there, pull that stalk up and open that up and look for what's inside. Is it simply the plant has cannibalized itself, so it's hollowed out, ran out of nutrients, and put everything into the ear? That's one challenge. Look for discoloration. We see some of that more pink-colored discoloration. We're going to see a lot of that. I've seen some already. That is more of that gibberella stalk rot caused by the types of conditions we had. And We're going to see some anthracnose out there as well. We'll see those dark lesions on the outside of the stem, sometimes the top kind of burning down. And if we do have those things and we have that higher risk in those fields, then looking at our ratings for stalk and making sure that we select those hybrids with better stalk ratings for those diseases when we're thinking about plans to go back to corn in those fields in another year. So let's be thinking about that and really figuring out what the issue is so we can address the issue, as well as scheduling an earlier harvest. This is not going to be the year to wait to get dry corn in the field. And so maybe a little extra dryer gas and getting all of that in the combine versus the challenges of picking up downed corn is never much fun, especially as the season goes on. Finally, I want to talk about some purple stalks in soybeans. And so, this is the time of the year we start to see different colors in soybeans out there. It's nice to see the tawny versus the gray beans out there. But we are getting calls on purple stalks. And that purpling, no matter the crop, a lot of times it tends to be that buildup of anthocyanin or sugars in the stalk. And so you think about the weather we had, and the beans were kind of shutting down, and yet we were still getting moisture. We were still getting sunlight and nutrients out there. In a lot of cases, we backed up those sugars back into those stalks, and the stalks look good. They've got pods on them, maybe not quite as many pods as some of the other stalks around it, and that might be part of the reason you have more sugars building up into those stalks and creating more of that purple color. Now, purple can also be, Cercospora if we start to see as disease, but that's not what I'm seeing out there right now. I am seeing some green stalks here and there as well. So a couple of things we think about with green stalks. One is just what we call green stem, and that is where you've got brown, fully developed pods on a stalk, and yet that stalk remained green. And usually that's caused by a stress where the pods finished up, but the plant got some extra moisture or nutrient late and just decided to keep on going. And some of that is varietally selected. The other one we see is tobacco ring spot virus, and that's a little different, where we see a green plant and there's hardly any pods on those plants, but if you look at the top of that plant, you'll see a cluster of what wanted to be a whole bunch of little bitty soybean pods. And that is caused by insect feeding earlier on and the transfer of that ring spot or tobacco mosaic virus across those plants through the insect feeding. So those usually scattered plants, more just, hey, what's going on out there than something that's truly yield limiting. But again, a great time of the year to be out and walking our fields, looking, asking questions, figuring out how do we do this better next year. And as always, a good time to sit down with your agronomists and your Golden Harvest folks out there to make those selections for those fields to have even better year next year. Again, this is Charles Scoville, your Golden Harvest agronomist, with your Focus Friday.